Former Canadian Olympian and alleged drug kingpin Ryan Wedding pleaded not guilty to 2 federal indictments in a U.S. court this afternoon. Wedding was arrested in Mexico after a huge manhunt that spanned a decade and multiple countries. Erin Collins is on this story. He's been covering today's proceedings from Santa Ana, California. And Erin, what happened?
Yeah, Ian, this was the first opportunity for folks to get a look at Ryan Wedding since he appeared here in California late last week after, as you mentioned, being apprehended in Mexico City by authorities. So today was just a first appearance. It was a brief appearance by Mr. Wedding. He seemed pretty relaxed as he was led into the courtroom here in Santa Ana in handcuffs, but having sort of a casual conversation with his lawyer. He's facing 2 separate indictments, more than a dozen charges relating to his international drug trafficking empire that he's alleged to have run, as well as potentially orchestrating the murder of some witnesses. So some very, very serious charges. And we also learned a little bit more about how Mr. Wedding was apprehended in Mexico City. His lawyer saying that he didn't turn himself in as had previously been reported.
He didn't surrender. He was apprehended. He was arrested. And so any spin that the government in Mexico is putting on this, that he surrendered, is inaccurate. He's hiding out and living somewhere are 2 different things. And so I would characterize it as living. The government could characterize it their way. And hence, why we have these judicial proceedings to determine ultimately how things turn out and whose interpretation of the facts is correct.
So Ian, still not entirely clear exactly what happened when Mr. Wedding was brought into custody south of the border here.
So these are serious charges that he faces that could put him behind bars for life. And maybe you can give us some quick background as to how he ended up behind bars.
Yeah, it's a winding path that, of course, a lot of Canadians have been following. Mr. Wedding has certainly, taken quite the different course from when he was competing for Canada in the Salt Lake Games in 2002. Kind of came on to the radar of investigators here in the United States and in Canada almost 20 years ago. And for the last decade, he's been on the run, basically, in Mexico City. Investigators not entirely sure where he was, but he was on the most wanted list for the FBI, a $15 million reward offered. And Ian, the key here is that he's alleged to have moved more than 60 tons of cocaine from South America into California and Canada. And just to give you a sense of the quantity we're talking about there, that would be about the size of 30 F-150 vehicles, an extraordinary amount of narcotics alleged to have been moved by Mr. Wedding. Still, despite the seriousness of those charges, today very relaxed, and his lawyer says he's in high spirits.
Imagine this has been a whirlwind, for Mr. Wedding, in terms of when he was apprehended and in terms of when he's appearing here. He's in good spirits. He's a former Olympic athlete, which obviously takes a lot of mental toughness to participate in those type of games and at a high level. So he's in good spirits.
Obviously, this is just the beginning of Mr. Wedding's legal journey. He's expected to be back in court here in California on March 24th.
This is such a notorious case, Erin, and here you are getting a chance. I don't know if you could actually see him if you were in the room with him. You could certainly see what was going on around him. And just before I let you go, just tell me what that was like.
Yeah, no cameras allowed in there, but I can tell you, when you're facing these kinds of serious charges, the demeanor of Mr. Wedding was interesting. He seemed casual, he seemed relaxed. He seemed like as if he was walking into sort of a neighborhood restaurant or something. It didn't seem that the weight of these charges were maybe on Mr. Wedding as one might think they would be. And a reminder there, he faces serious consequences if found guilty. guilty of these things, and of course has pleaded not guilty to both of those indictments that contain, like I said, more than a dozen charges relating to not just this international drug trafficking operation that he's alleged to have operated, but also connected to several murders, Ian.
Yeah, well, and one last quick thing. I mean, he is alleged to have been involved in some particularly ruthless crimes and murders, and I just wonder if security, I assume, was pretty tight in that courtroom.
Yeah, in the courtroom, and I think prior to arriving as well, right? Difficult for us to ascertain sort of how Mr. Wedding would be moving into the courthouse today. One can assume that might have had something to do with maintaining security for him and for the officers and legal officials involved in this trial, right? So that was kept quite under wraps. Oftentimes you might see some kind of a perp walk or something like that in a case like this. That didn't happen today. There was security in the courtroom and no cameras allowed in there as well, Ian. So certainly signs that police here were definitely taking security seriously.
Yeah, the perp walk, the perpetrator walking in front of the cameras, they took care of that as he got off the plane earlier. Erin Collins reporting from Santa Ana, California. Thank you so much.